I'm Galvin,
And I'm Author Function.
and this is the Secret Boss Podcast, where we talk about the best auteurs in gaming, whether they deserve that title or not. And today we are talking about Jon Ingold, or rather the second part of his career. See, the first half of his career was so dedicated to text-person games, and he made so many of them that he discovered the limitations of them and became so aggravated with them that he created a whole new way of doing interactive fiction, which became one of the only profitable ways of doing interactive fiction, even to this day. Incredible. Can you imagine being so pissed off at something that you create the only actually commercially viable version of it?
And the only good version of it. This is the only kind of interaction fiction I like, apparently. And I'm very much thankful to Jon Ingold for doing an actually good version of interactive fiction. You're so mad at me. I can see the scowl on your
Listeners,
face.
listeners, I'm shaking my head right now, and I want you to know that that Oliver Function is going to be the antagonist of the podcast. I am the good one. Listen to me only on this side for the next hour or however long we record this episode. Okay, he is the bad voice. He's the devil on your shoulder. Don't listen to him.
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that. All right. Jon Ingold grew up with interactive fiction. He didn't want to necessarily be an interactive fiction writer. He just wanted to be a novel writer, period. But while he was studying math in college, he started making interactive fiction games, text parser games. If you want to hear all about that, go listen to to the first part of our podcast, which you don't have to necessarily to listen to the second part of this podcast, because the second part is about the second era of his life in a way. Because after making a lot of very successful, well, within the bounds of text parser games, a lot of very successful text parser games, which didn't make any money because they were all released for free, he joined the video game industry and founded Inkle, this company that he would then go on to run until this day with this man named Joseph Humphrey, which he met while designing video games with. You may recognize Jon Ingold from the one game he directed that was actually released. I think it was called TV Superstars for the PlayStation Move. It was released in 2011 for the PS3. It was a trivia game where you used the PlayStation Move to answer questions, I guess, about TV. He was the director of that game, and he says he only managed the technical aspects and didn't do any writing for it whatsoever. But he met people while working there, and he met Joseph Humphrey, which you may recognize famously as one of the six software engineers who worked on the DS port of Diddy Kong Racing. You know, those famous types of people. Together, they formed Inkle, which was based on an engine they both made together called Ink, which is very confusing, but the engine is called Ink. It's a scripting language also called Ink. It's an interactive fiction. It's a scripting language designed for interactive fiction specifically, where you pick from different choices, and it's hard to explain. I've literally explained it to Offer two times off of mic, and at the end of each time he said, "I don't get it," so I won't try to explain it to you so much. But the general idea is it's about trying to have it's basically a scripting language that can keep track of a lot of different variables in an interactive fiction context. Whereas with Twine, you often have to tell stories in linear fashions with nodes that connect to one another, and other engines do that too. But Ink is basically a lot more nonlinear, and that
I'll
is
get
the
it.
foundation that started the podcast. All right,
Does not make sense to me.
let's end the podcast. Let's just end it right now.
I think this is working out pretty well. Keep going. I'm entertained. Keep going.
Let's start with a game that neither of us played. The first game they technically made in the company was Frankenstein. It was an adaptation of the novel Frankenstein. I think initially they started the company Inc. without the intention of making games. They wanted to make interactive books and connect more with the literary community than with the video game community. They just operated from an interactive context. So Frankenstein was their pitch to, I think they pitched it to book publishers with the intent of showing them, hey, this is what the language can do, and this is what you can do with literature now. It did decently well, but it didn't blow up very well, especially not compared to their other stuff. Then they got hired to make a game called Sorcery. This is where we start. Sorcery 1 and 2. These are adaptations of books too, technically. They're adaptations of Steve Jackson's Sorcery books, which were released as actual game books, like choose your own adventure game books that involve stat checking and dice rolling, basically. Steve Jackson released 4 of these books. There are 4 of these games, but let's just start with Sorcery 1 and 2. Now, we both played Sorcery 1. What do you think about it,
Yeah,
Offer?
I really like Sorcerer. I mean, I really like Sorcery 1. First off, I think it's really interesting that he is directly indebted to like the old forms of games. I feel like a lot of people that are like interested in narrative in games are like, oh yeah, this is a new thing. We're doing this new software. We're doing interactive fiction, never been done before. And he's going back to like the 70s and going like, yeah, this is something that has been done before, and I want to be having my own take on it. I want to be adapting it to this medium instead of like pretending that I'm inventing something here. And I think this is I didn't play the original Sorcery, but I think this is a really cool adaptation. It is like you definitely see how it used to be a choose your own adventure kind of thing, but it is presented with a lot of modern UI elements. You could very easily mistake it for a new text-based, or I mean, not text-based RPG, but RPG with a lot of text in it. You have like different stats. You have like energy, and I think there's a magic stat or something. No, I think it's just stamina actually, and
Yeah,
money.
stamina.
And then you have a map over here. You can see all the different areas that you can go to, what will await you on the map, and you actually like drag your character across the different places, the different events that are on the screen. So it feels like it's kind of using the strategy game kind of aesthetics in order to be adapting this for like a modern reader. And apparently, he also added like a whole bunch of extra events to make things connect and work, and just new stuff to be more entertaining and not trying to make it like a direct adaptation or anything. And I really enjoyed it. The sort of combat system, I assume, is like from the old book system, but it is like very simple. It's basically just like rolling dice to see what is higher, but it works. And he also like added this thing where you can, after you lose, you just go back to the beginning of the fight and try it again. So it's not like the combat is especially, I mean, it can be difficult, but you get infinite retries in a very short amount of time. So you never like feel like failure is a big problem. And it's a lot more about this story and the unfolding events that are happening. And the failures feel more like a choose your own adventure. You can immediately undo it. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. It's a very simple narrative. I didn't talk anything about the narrative. But yeah, it's basically the crown is gone, the king lost his crown, and go get it. And then it's just exploring and adventuring, and it's cool.
And this actually brings us to another thing about Jon Ingold is that he is very I think out of any auteur we covered so far or might cover in the future, he's maybe the most documented game designer that's the most self-documented game designer maybe out there. Because if you look him up on YouTube and he has countless GDC talks about all of his games that he's worked on. He's talked on at length on multiple podcasts about what he was thinking while he was doing Sorcery. There was literally an Inkle podcast they made when they were developing 80 Days where they were talking about developing the game as they were making it. And you can hear him in that podcast come up with ideas that would later turn into Overboard. Crazy. He was very ahead of the curve when it comes to basically documenting everything and posting it online. So very helpful for us. It also explains why this episode took so long for me to finish. Yeah, but already in Sorcery 1, there's a lot that's laid down here that Inkle will continue to do for the rest of their for the rest of their games. And as a result, Jon Ingold. Jon Ingold talks a lot about how he had troubles working on Frankenstein, the very first Inkle game, because it was initially just text, basically, that you would select from, and there were multiple endings. You could get multiple endings by making different choices, but most people would just reach one ending and then stop because they didn't realize that the other endings or the other choices would lead to equally meteor branches. And he was wondering, how do you get people to realize that the choices they're making are missing out on other choices that are just as important? And the way he figured out how to do this, along with other developers, obviously, he wasn't the only one, was by creating a physical map. Sorcery is based on a physical map in which a lot of the locations and events that you run into are based on where you go. And you only have generally one route to go to as you reach the final destination, which is the crown. But by choosing one route and not picking the other ones, the game was implicitly telling you that there were choices you were missing out on and that it was encouraging you to replay the game and do it over and over again. The same thing goes with 80 Days, which is explicitly about making a voyage to one endpoint, but with a lot of different routes that you could take on multiple playthroughs. And speaking of multiple playthroughs, that leads to another part of Inkle's games that they keep. I mean, they don't really mention it a lot in their branding, but I keep seeing it in a lot of the games, which is they allow you to retry a lot, like and rewind a lot. I feel like this is taken from his text parser games, which would allow you to basically undo and save state and save scum basically however you want, just as long as you're able to beat the game, essentially. But yeah, Sorcery does something. I mean, Sorcery's rewind mechanic is really fun because it means that the game can just be as cruel to you as it wants without repercussion, which is how the original Steve Jackson Sorcery book was written, by the way. There were choices you can make in that book where they're like, if you want to go in the tornado, turn to this page. And when you turn to that page, the book just goes, okay, you die. Like you don't have any choice in it, basically. But that's okay because in a game book, you could just basically turn back to the previous page. You don't have to restart from the beginning. And that's a really clever way to me of adapting the game book because it's like by rewinding the game, you can just turn back a page. It's the same thing essentially, but it
Right.
also allows for very comedic scenarios. Like I didn't do this, but apparently in the first game, at the very beginning, you spawn at the start of a cliff. There's a big cliff that you can jump off of at the beginning of the game, and the game can tell you, "Hey, you can jump off the cliff if you want." And if you do, you just die immediately. So the game is basically just telling you that your actions have consequences. Just because you can do something, you don't have to do it essentially. And because of that, be careful about the choices you make. Your choices have consequences, basically. Just because it's there doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah. I during my playthrough, I lost all of my money, I lost all of my armor, I just had a really basic sword, and I was still able to beat the game, but I definitely felt that tension of, I don't have anything with me. I can't do anything super fancy or special, but I can grind my way to the end because I have infinite retries. So I had that going for me, I guess.
It's awesome. We didn't even mention the spell book, which is, I guess, the biggest feature of the game. If there was anything to distinguish it from other text adventure games, it would be the spell book. Basically, at random points in the game, or for a lot of choices, honestly, a lot of choices or encounters that you run into, you can choose to cast a spell, which is you have a list of spells which are three-letter words, and you pick from three letters essentially to create that spell, and you can cast it in that scenario, which costs you something. But it's basically, in some ways, it's kind of like a text parser, a very limited text parser, because it doesn't matter what the context is. You can basically cast most spells you want within any scenario, and the game doesn't give you like a limited set of choices. But because of that, you have to think very carefully about what you want to cast because everything has a cost. And I just wanted to mention that because there's a very funny story John Ingold told when they were testing the first game when one of the players ran into a random guy who just said hello to him, and the player cast Zap, which is electrocute somebody, and he electrocuted the guy to death, and he was like, "Wait, why would the game allow me to do that if there was no point in doing that in the first place?" And he was like, That's the type of game design I want to have, where it's just like you don't have to justify something in your character's reasoning to do something. You can just do it essentially. So you can just do whatever you want. You can embrace the call of the void. You can do the worst possible choices and then rewind later because that's what you want to do. Freedom, essentially.
Okay, this is completely off topic, but I think it is mind blowing that the name Inkle has nothing to do with Jon Ingold's name, despite sounding exactly the same. I keep hearing you say Ingold, and I think Inkle, and I hear Inkle, and I think Ingold. I just keep getting confused for them. I don't know how that happened.
Well, maybe it is. I mean, he never said it wasn't. He could have been thinking of that. I
Well,
could,
at least Ink seems to be completely separate from Ingold, and then Inkle is like an extension of Ink. So if
but
it
Inkle
was made to be resembling, then
Inkle
it's a
isn't a word
coincidence in
though.
some way.
Inkle is not a word. Like inkling is a word. Inkle is just they added a syllable to the end of ink. I don't know. That's possible.
I
Inkle,
think
if
it's
you listening,
coincidence.
secretly naming the company after yourself to backstab your partner. I rule the company now. It also just has like a mind blowing amount of choices. Again, ink. I can't. I'm apparently not good at describing things, so I can't describe the engine very well. But it allows for a mind blowing amount of choices. The best example I can think of is something he mentioned in an interview. In the beginning, in the first game, there are four games, and each game carries over into the next one. Although each of them stand alone, so you can technically start with whatever game you want to. But in the first game, you meet somebody called. Sorry, give me a second. His name is here somewhere. I wrote it down. There we go. In the first game, you meet a character named Flanker, who can accompany you throughout the game until the end of the game, and you can kill him whenever you want, essentially. And you can talk to him, you can do whatever you want with him. You can kill him in the very first game, and obviously he won't show up in the second game when you carry it over. But if he survives, then he does carry over into the second game. Jonathan Ingold and his team were writing dialogue trees and relationship trees in Sorcery 4, the final sorcery game for this character Flanker, who you can kill in the first game and never see again for the rest of the series. That's how big the scope of this game is, just for one NPC character.
And I don't
And
think I ever even met this character, so
okay, so it's not even completely optional. This is just a part of the story. You can finish the game, the entire franchise, without ever having met Flanker. But yeah, that just goes to show how big these. I don't know. It's mind blowing to me that I mean we played these games for like 1 month, 2 months. I don't really know the scope of any of them, like how far they go. Must have involved an insane amount of writing.
yeah, he would talk about how he would basically have the strategy of quantity over quality and just making as much as he can because having it all together makes the whole experience more whole, more extensive, and that he just wanted to make sure he had as much as possible. So he just kept adding events, and I think it really paid off for him.
Yeah, and obviously, since you're not since every playthrough is different, you're gonna be visiting a town and making a different choice and going to another town, like, it's not like it's very easy to chart the flow of how a narrative moves throughout that. So you had to consider all those different permutations of narratives and try to make it as good as possible for every player. I don't even know how you test that because that's such a unique game type, I guess. That's part of what makes him so interesting for me is that it feels like he's inventing a new type of game that other people haven't attempted because it's so ambitious. And it's like, how do you even test that?
Well, I don't think that he was like that. I don't think he was planning things out to that extent. When he was talking about 80 days, he talked about how he basically created a lot of events that didn't have to be connecting all the time, but they would like reference different events earlier. But they would just have all these different events, and the player would like build their own narrative out of all these different events that he wrote all together, and like they would sort of create a linear structure themselves through their experience without actually, like, having an intent there with them. So I'm not sure if you disagree with that.
No, no, I agree. I think I just misworded it. To be clear, Sorcery was also written this way. Ingold emphasizes episodic writing, where basically episodes are relegated to areas of the map, so you can finish an episode by the time you leave the area. So, but it can be referenced before, it's just like a little passing piece of dialogue. But in general, it's not like an avalanche narrative where a choice you make very early on determines like all the events later on. Although obviously some stuff like that appears like flanker, but that kind of stuff like weaves in and out of the story. To be clear, what I'm saying is it's hard to test the overall narrative, like the overall series of events that you go through. Like this event followed by this event, followed by this event. It's weird to see if it's very difficult to see if that leads to like a cohesive or fun or well paced narrative, all these events in order, because you have to test so many different versions of them. There's so many different permutations of them that no single
Right.
player is going to have the same flow. That's what I thought was difficult. But yeah, that's how he wrote it, yeah, to be clear. Episodic, atomic writing, where individual events clarify themselves. And is there anything else you wanna mention about Sorcery?
Nope.
Okay. Just wanna mention this because it's mind-blowing to me. I didn't play it. The 4th game takes away rewind from you, which is insane.
What?
Imagine playing 3 games and then the 4th one's like, "Nope, this is the last one, so you're not gonna get a rewind." That's crazy.
Interesting. I guess, like, they really wanted the player to, like, commit to a choice, I guess,
Yeah. There
by that
are
end. Interesting.
There are checkpoints if you die. So if you die, you can cast a spell that rewinds you if you die to that spot. But yeah, there
Okay.
isn't a rewind. And I mean, they mentioned it. I'm not going to get too into this because I didn't even play Sorcery 4, but they were talking about, hey, this is the final one. Let's design an actual puzzle because all the previous parts of the game were encouraged. All the previous parts of the game were kind of difficult, but they were also designed to push the player to the end of the game because there was always a next game to promote. And if they wouldn't buy the next game if they didn't finish it. But since they were like, okay, Sorcery 4 is the last game, they were just like, let's put a puzzle at the end of the game that if you don't solve, then you're just stuck. So it becomes an actual puzzle game right at the very end.
Yeah.
And that's not even mentioning that in the 4th game, there are I'm sorry, I'm spoiling this, minor spoilers, but there are time travel mechanics where you rewind the previous games and make previous decisions. I don't know.
Jeez.
There's a lot of stuff going on there. I guess they wanted to go out on a bang, but in between all of that, Sorcery 1 and 2 blew up. People really liked it. It became very popular, especially on the App Store because that's where they released it. I think there were PC ports, but it was also designed for iPhone and iPad. And this was early on when the App Store still had hope. So people were like, "Oh, this is a good quality game, and it's coming out here." So between Sorcery 2 and 3, they decided to pivot and make a different game called 80 Days, which is maybe is it their most popular game? You think?
I think it's their most popular. I heard so much about 80 Days, back when I wasn't really following games media at all. It was, like, one of the top, games on mobile for, like, people that weren't interested in, I guess, microtransaction heavy games, because it's just I think it was one of, like, the first major narrative games as well. It won so many awards, it got really popular. I heard it through word of mouth, so it must have been a really big deal. I assume it's the most popular.
I heard it through word of mouth too. Yeah, I guess if you think of Inkle as a company, 80 Days is the game I think of. Yeah, so I guess I would by default make it the most popular game. Yeah, yeah, 80 Days, really big deal. Released in 20. God, why did I say the date? 'Cause if I don't know the
14,
date.
2014.
Oh, you got it.
I'm
You got
calling
it.
it.
You know more about it.
Yeah!
Oh. He shoots. You know more about Ingold than me. You did it. You
Well,
now
I actually
inherit this
played this
episode.
game on release, so I had a pretty good idea.
Okay, okay, you got me. This is technically a game he didn't write, but he did direct it. Meg Giants, who doesn't work for the company anymore, I think she just wrote this game and then she left. But she wrote most of this game's text, and Ingold would. I mean, it's not that Ingold did nothing. He did write some of the text, and he did format the text within the game. But when it came to like the actual prose of the game, he would describe what the situation was to Giant, and she would write it and then give it back to him, and that's what would make it into the game most of the time. So it's more of a co-writing situation, but still, he directed it and he had a huge hand in it. This is, if you don't recognize the name, adapted from the book Around the World in 80 Days, written by Jules Verne, which he casually name drops. He casually drops this in an interview, which is insane. He didn't read the book until halfway into the game. He didn't. He never read the novel Around the
I
World
don't
in
think
80
he ever
Days.
had to read the novel. I It's really doing its own thing.
Okay, okay, I trust you. I didn't read the novel either, so maybe it's not that crazy.
'Cause, like, there's a lot
Yeah,
of sci-fi elements in this game, right? And I don't think that there's sci-fi in Around the World in 80 Days, right?
maybe not. I think there was like a little mention of steampunk in it, but not too much. Yeah. You can tell how literate we are. Neither of us have read the book this game is based on. And it's the most popular book. It's the most
We
popular
don't
game.
need to read the book either. Nobody has to read the fucking book. Who cares?
Yeah. We play games to not read. What do you think we're doing this for?
Imagine reading this game without reading it. Like, I even said reading this imagine playing this game without reading it. Oh my god.
Yeah. This was developed okay, the idea for this was developed kind of on and off alongside Sorcery before they got signed to Steve Jackson's Sorcery first and actually talked to Steve Jackson, so they decided to make that first. 80 Days, they were talking about how they wanted to do an adaptation of another book because they were still stuck on the book thing, adapting books specifically. And I think it was Joseph Humphrey, the co-founder who did the more who does the more technical stuff on every game, who mentioned Around the World in 80 Days, which John Ingle had not read, but I'm pretty sure Humphrey had read, and they kept talking about it on and off, apparently in pubs. Insane. I don't know if you heard this offer. He just casually dropped this in an interview. The original idea was that it was going to be designed for mobile and that you were going to play the game in 80 real time days. You were going to
Holy
start the
sh
journey and then put the phone away, and then it would give you a notification whenever Phileas Fogg or whatever was like, we stopped at something, and you would make a choice, which knowing the actual game is completely insane because it's like you have to wait 7 days for a train to come in sometimes. And it's like, how would that work on the phone? Would you just be like, okay, see you next Sunday video game? I have to wait for this train to come in.
I would hate that so much. Like, there's a decent amount of actually, now that I think about like, a lot of mobile games that require you to, like, wait in real time, and I just hate that as a mechanic, especially on my phone because 'cause I'm like I'm only playing on my phone in very specific circumstances, and if I had to, like, have an appointment to play a fucking phone game, I'd be so pissed. I would hate it so much.
It would be the worst case of sunk cost fallacy for me because it's literally like 2.5 months. So I would just be like, at the end of 2 months, I would be like, I really don't like this game, but I have to keep playing it because I have to finish the journey. And imagine you don't get to the end in 80 days, then you have to start all the way from the beginning. That's
My god.
ridiculous. That's
Playing this
ridiculous.
game for, like, multiple years, like, it's a real strategy for a lot of mobile companies to, like, make people play their game for longer, and I'm really glad they didn't go that route.
But they
'Cause
don't
oh
have
god.
time limits. Whatever.
True.
What is 80 Days about? Since, spoiler alert, you like this game and I am lukewarm on it.
I love this game. It's great. It might be no, it's not my favorite, but I mean, it's around the world in 80 days. It's about going around the world in 80 days. Clear can I make it? Basically, your interaction with this is that there are a bunch of different cities around a map, and it's a really beautiful map, by the way. I love the presentation in this. And you basically choose different routes that you can take, what vehicles you're going to take, like car or plane or ship or whatever. You have some mechanics like money. You also have a suitcase filled with items that will like either help you get more money or unlock other story paths. And this part is random, so it also gives like a degree of roguelike randomness for every I don't know every playthrough to be different or whatever. But really, the part that shines is the different journeys and experiences you can have. Because every time that you go to a different city, you're going to be having different events happen. You're going to be interacting with different people, trying new things. And once you go to the cities, like you really have no idea what journey you're gonna be in for until you start taking it. I remember when I first played this in, like, 2014, there was a part where I got to, like, I went up north by Russia or whatever, and we got stuck in, like, the Russian snow or whatever, and, like, I can't remember the specifics, but I think that there was, like, some degree of infighting at that point. And another route that I did back then and also had this time was that I took a blimp somewhere and eventually we like crashed into the ocean. And like during that traumatic event, the two main characters like became much more close emotionally and like had their own I don't know, breakthrough together. And it was a really nice moment. And either way, like the storyline kind of worked. Just part of the match of like having the main characters be like two men that are like affectionate with each other, but also very distant means that there can be like a lot of varying responses to events without it feeling like anything's out of character at any point. And yeah, I don't know. I really like this game. Tell me why you dislike it and hate it and think it sucks.
I just didn't click with it, I guess. I think the plot lines I ran to, I didn't really care about. I was like, where was I going? There were a lot of variables. I don't know. I just feel more inherently invested, I think, in a story like Sorcery, which is about well, you have to get to this position and you fight things along the way, rather than 80 Days, which is more about, as far as I can tell, scheduling things and packing things.
Oh, love that shit.
Crazy. I don't know. But yeah, everyone really loves this game. So I'm the weird one to be clear. I think you should probably play this game even if I didn't get what was going on with it.
Yeah, like I said, it won a bunch of awards. It was like kind of groundbreaking for a mobile game at the time. Probably
Yeah.
still is, to be honest. Mobile games haven't really
Yeah.
increased in narrative quality for indie developers, I guess.
They should go back and put ads in between as they're traveling between
Oh
each
my
of the
god.
places.
Why are you pitching ways to make this game worse when you already don't like it?
I'm pitching ways to make them more money, okay? I have their best interests in mind. Unlike you, you're thinking about art. I'm thinking about actual commerce. Welcome to the real world. No, no. Ingold said this was a big lucky break for them because he talks about how they kept running into really intuitive design on accident because obviously they didn't write the book Around the World in 80 Days. But he mentions that first off, when they finished the game and it got so popular, they were looking for another novel to do this with, and they realized Jules Verne doesn't have another novel that is like this, that is about traveling around the world in a certain amount of time. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the one where they go to the center, journey to the center of the earth, they have different structures that would make for completely different games that wouldn't work in this scenario. Meanwhile, there are very intuitive variables that are built into the game that people can understand, even if they haven't played many text adventure games or stat managing games. Everyone knows that you have 80 days because it's literally in the title and it's based on in the title of both the game and the book that it's based on. Luggage is inherently somebody everybody understands because they know there's a limit to luggage and you would have to find difference in the game. Basically, luggage is organized by a kind of square-based grid system. Other RPGs do this, but you would be basically fitting objects which each have their own squared area into this gigantic rectangle. And people inherently understand that because people pack luggage like that in real life. And Ingold also mentions that everybody already has an opinion on every location they visit because they're locations in real life. So they would already be invested in the locations that they're traveling to, and there wouldn't have to be any like narrative establishment, even if there was. He also tells a pretty funny story about an anecdote where somebody angrily emailed him that they missed a train in their game because they didn't pack their suitcases fast enough. And he emailed them back saying, maybe you should try packing your suitcase the night before you leave. And that is both advice that works in the game and in real life. And that's what he thought was good game design. It was so intuitive that the advice works both in the game and in real life, and that his video game somehow managed to make somebody mad because they missed their train because they were too busy packing their luggage. Such a real feeling in real life evoked through a video game. I thought that was very nice.
I mean, if I was in real life, I would just do it faster. I
Yeah,
could do that. I'm so good at packing shit.
honestly, that guy's an idiot. The QA tester from years ago. If you're reading this, you or if you're listening to this, you were real dumb. You should have
No, I'm
packed
pro
faster.
QA tester. I'd do it faster. It's just the real world doesn't matter here.
Just press the button faster, dumb dumb.
I do think this concept is like really hitting that selling because it just people want to have that ability to like explore the world, even if it's so abstracted and like gamified and everything.
Yeah.
And just like seeing your progress on the map feels fulfilling, like seeing the path that you took. It's like,
Mhm.
wow, I did all of that. All these different things happened. It's a very good visual indicator for everything that's happened, and I love it.
Yeah. I mean, they really I don't know. It's crazy that they hit the map thing with Sorcery and then they realized, "Oh, this is great. We can just keep going with this." And it worked for 80 Days too. And not all of their games have this map scenario, but it's like it laid the groundwork so much. They really I'm not gonna say they were lucky because it was obviously good design that kept them going back to it, but it's crazy how they went from Frankenstein, which is apparently just a text-only game, to Sorcery, which laid down so much of the foundations for it. Yeah, I don't understand game design. It seems like a lot.
They moved away from the map-based structure after this, I think. I don't think there's
Yeah,
anything else
they
that's like
didn't
that.
they didn't do this for the entire time. I think this was when Inkle was at the height of their fame. I I, I think after 80 days they were like this was
For
when it
sure.
was. Yeah, obviously they're still doing well. They're still selling games pretty well, I think. But it's just this was. I mean, they were dominating the App Store market. Like I'm pretty sure they were on the front page for like years. So yeah, this was a big deal. This was like the iPhone and iPad game, at least from my perspective. But yeah, after this, they released Sorcery Part 3 and Part 4, completing the series. They were done. Apparently, they were really exhausted when they finished Sorcery 4. They had nothing left in them, and they were just like, let's just finish this and be done with it. And then after that, they took a 3-year break, which is they had never done before. They'd been releasing games every year up until then. They took a 3-year break from 2016 to 2019 to work on their big swing. This is, I'm pretty sure, their biggest game they've ever made to this day. Heaven's Vault. Do you know anything about this game?
Not really, besides that he wrote a book that was, similar to Heaven's Fault. I think, yeah, go
Wrong,
ahead.
wrong. He wrote 4 books, idiot. He wrote 4 books about Heaven's
Okay,
Vault.
well, whatever.
Yeah.
Still 1 book. 4 books is
It's
1 book.
it's 4 novels, okay? It's 4 novel-length books, it's a lot. I didn't read them, but it seems like a lot. Yeah. Heaven's Vault is archaeology puzzle game, kind of. It's about decrypting a language that doesn't exist, but okay, well, there's a lot to explain. It's a sci-fi game that takes place in space with elements of real-life archaeology. That their reasoning for this was Ingold said he wanted to make an archaeology game, but then he realized that politics of archaeology in real life were kind of shaky because it was a lot about stealing stuff in real life. So he just made a sci-fi world where you became an archaeologist, and it was. I mean, they still questioned the idea of archaeology in the game, to be clear, but it was less icky than mentioning specific cultures. But the point is, you're a space archaeologist. You travel around the planets. One of your archaeologist friends are missing, or not really your friend. It's your character was raised by a mother figure after her parents abandoned her, and this mother figure says that her friend is missing. So the main character is like, fine, I guess I'll go find him. And that uncovers a mystery that involves figuring out a language of an alien species in order to solve. This is technically a map type game in that you're traveling different planets and landing on them and discovering all sorts of different items in the same way you're doing with Sorcery in 80 Days. And but this time there's a mystery to be unraveled, and more importantly, the most important part, this game is their first 3D game, and I think their only 3D game technically. This is made in Unity, which now officially supports Ink as an engine. But I don't know how to put this kindly, so maybe I just won't. You can tell this was their first 3D game, and they never really went back to it. I'm not kidding. It's very Jake. Like I'm not a graphics person at all. I play very small indie games. Okay, like I'm fine with that. The 3D in this game is Jake. There are very low polygon objects all over the place. There are buildings with very open doors that you can't walk into. Every character is designed as a 2D character, but you can't see their feet. I'm sure that's for some technical reason, but they never explain that to you. The game is very laggy. There's just a lot, and it's 12 hours. I have to admit to you, listener, I did not finish this game, even though some people consider this one of their best games because apparently there is a lot here.
Yeah, it was nominated for a bunch of awards, I think, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's cited frequently as one of the best in its very specific subgenre, which is uncovering language by context clues alone, which I think Chance of Sinar and what was the other game? There was another game that was about uncovering languages.
Still, that's
I
only,
don't
like, 3
remember.
games. Is that really a subgenre?
I guess. I don't know, but I mean, it's a subgenre. It's a subgenre the same way Return of the Obra Dinn is a subgenre, where it's like such a bold thing to attempt in the first place that most people don't do it. But
Okay.
this one, right? They were doing this. Not only does this have a language, but it has the previous choice making systems of Inkle, so you can choose what planets you want to go to. You can miss out on clues completely. When you finish the game, there's a new game plus, which adds completely new storylines. And they apparently wanted to expand this game so much that that's what the 4 novels were for. The first 2 novels apparently recap the original game, I think, and the last 2 novels are a sequel to the game that was never made because it would be too expensive and the first game didn't do well enough commercially. But Ingold wrote it if you want to see the sequel to Heaven's Vault. Yeah. But yeah, people really love this game in some senses. I did not like it. Yeah. It also has a very interesting okay, I mean, you could tell they were going for a lot of different swings. Also has a very interesting, conversation system, which is unlike the previous conversation systems where it's time-based and it's cinematic. So it's kind of like Telltale, where the camera is moving with the characters as they're moving, but you have to answer with the Inkle dialogue prompts as they're moving, basically. Very weird. It's like Telltale, where if you don't answer in a short enough time, then they just move on with the conversation. And the camera is janky, so sometimes it will just clip into a wall while you're trying to answer, and that's just part of the game. I don't know. Lots of stuff going on in this game. Very ambitious. People love it. No, I guess that's it.
Yeah. Moving on to
Okay.
Pendragon?
Yeah. So after this, they decide to go. I would argue. I mean, I don't know if this is what their intention was, but I'm pretty sure this is their smaller project after they released Heaven's Vault. I feel like this is a very small project.
It seems pretty small. I think that from my perspective, it had a lot less text and the systems were very simple,
Yeah.
but it also is like going into a new system that I don't think they've really done before or since.
This is kind of what I respect about Jon Ingold is that he is just like when the Inkle is prospering, he just kind of like does new systems. Like anyone would say, "Oh, keep the Sorcery franchise moving," or a lot of people said, "Where's the sequel to 80 Days?" But he said that a big part of the reason he didn't do a sequel to 80 Days was because he felt like he couldn't top it. So he was just going to make a completely different system altogether. Pendragon is so interesting because it's like I feel like it's the most experimental when it comes to the Inkle system about what it can do. It's such a weird concept. I mean, stop me if you don't think this is accurate, but I'm going to try to describe Pendragon. It's
Okay.
a tactical RPG like Fire Emblem. That's what they call them, right? Tactical RPGs.
Eh,
Is it not? Okay. Did I hit strike a nerve with the
I
tactical
don't think I'd
RPG
even
community?
call it an RPG. It is more just tactics. I don't think there's any like real. I guess there is
You
growth.
level
I
up.
guess it's an
You
RPG.
level up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you'll see why he doesn't consider it an RPG very soon. It's tactical RPG like Fire Emblem, where you move your units across tiled squares, and it's very based on where you're placed and what your stats are when you attack other people and stuff like that. But with the Inkle system implemented into it, different choice-based branching systems within the story. This story this time is based off of the Arthurian legend, which is King Arthur and his knights. Only it takes place technically after the Round Table is disbanded. King Arthur's horrible son, I think, has taken over the kingdom, and you play as one of the side characters to kill his son. So you don't play as King Arthur himself, at least not initially. But what's interesting about it is that you can change the Arthurian legend as you play the game. So this is the really interesting part. Every run is like I want to say like an hour and a half. That's how long I think it took
Probably
for
something like
me.
that.
Yeah, very, very short. Like the entire game can be in an hour and a half. You level up very quickly. So your level there's only like 5 levels for each of your units basically. You can meet units when your units die, I guess that's it. Well, no, they lose a heart, but if they lose all their hearts overall, then they die. And then you basically affect the outcome of the Arthurian legend through your choices that you make in this very short amount of time. And the game is designed for you to keep replaying the legend over and over and over to see how many different ways you can tell it. And as you keep replaying it, the difficulty keeps going up and you keep unlocking different characters. So it's a tactical RPG not based on leveling up, but based on telling a story that is a revision of the Arthurian legend, I guess, right?
I guess.
This is the thing. I don't think this game works on a fundamental level, even though I can kind of see what's cool about it on paper. First off, it's way too easy. There's at least to me. I don't know how it was for you. It,
Yeah.
it's it, it's interesting because it's not that it takes a approach to Fire Emblem and those RPGs that are not not number based. If your character gets hit one time, then they're eliminated from the board, and they lose a heart overall. And if they lose several hearts overall over several battles, then they die. But like it's based on chess, like specifically because it's kind of like a pun. You know, King Arthur and his knights. Chess is a game about a king and his knights. Characters move like chess, and you're basically trying to get the exact specific right place to get your enemies to sacrifice themselves. At least I'm assuming that's what their design was. The problem was it's way too easy to just like wait for the character for the enemy to get themselves in a bad spot and kill them. So it's really just about waiting and sitting in the same spot over and over until you win the battle. Did you feel like
Yeah.
that?
You only play as like a few characters at a time. So it's kind of like the end
Yeah.
game of chess where if you're very good at chess like me, it's mostly just like just moving like a lot of things around to like sort of trap your enemy and do what you want. But chess is like usually a lot faster paced during the end game. You can do things really quickly. But in Pendragon, you're like sitting through these animations, like waiting for the computer to do things, and also occasionally like dialogue will happen. Imagine like moving your pawn like 5 spaces over 5 turns. Like that would take several minutes of time for you to like move everything. It felt very sluggish, and I really did not enjoy it.
And the pawn will be bantering with the enemy between each turn. Also, yeah. I mean, I get the idea of it. I think the idea was it was supposed to be a slimmed down version of chess. Maybe too many players or too many units on board would be too much, or it would be like a chess puzzle, I guess. The problem is this game, I think, is just fundamentally afraid of hurting its characters. Like, I don't think any of my characters got hurt more than once because when you put your character in danger, like of being attacked the next turn, the game flashes a big warning sign at you, says, warning your character could get hit, when I feel like it should have been encouraging sacrifice. I don't know. I mean, I'm basically just suggesting game design tips to a game I did not play more than 3 hours of. So I think I should just stop here. But it's a cool idea. But yeah, I don't think it works at all. I like the idea of an RPG with a narrative based system like Inkle, but that would have to be like a big deal, like Fire Emblem, like scope for me.
Yeah. So what I like about the tactics RPG genre is that you can like tell stories within the gameplay. Like you have this map and you like are
Yeah.
abstracting a lot of systems. So like you can make your own narratives based off the fights that you're doing and what is happening based on like what characters die, what characters level up, what characters like kind of grow. But in this game, like nobody, because there aren't really a lot of RPG systems, none of the characters are really changing that much on a gameplay level. So it doesn't like feel like people are actually changing that much. And the dialogue is so proceduralized that it doesn't feel like anything is really changing on a narrative level either. It feels a lot more like a journey when there should be character growth. Like, despite 80 Days and Sorcery, like being both kind of like episodic as well. Here, it doesn't feel like any of those mini episodes have any real tension because a lot of them are just like, you fought some spiders. So what are the spiders going to do?
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
you killed the spiders, yay! So, like, what was the point of that? I spent, like, 15 minutes on this one chapter, what happened? Nothing. I fought spiders, who cares?
I would say there's a little bit of tension to push back a little bit on what you were saying. There were some scenarios that I thought were interesting, like when there were some where you met some villagers and they weren't sure whether or not you're going to attack them or not. And as you approach them, the dialogue would change to like more fearful or more threatening or whatever. So you can feel the tension of the scene changing based on what vantage point your characters were moved to, or how close they were moved to, or whether you waited for them to attack first before you attacked, or you just attacked them. Like, there's stuff like that, but the game doesn't do nearly enough of that throughout any of its runs to do that. Also, the characters are very, very two-dimensional, and there are relationships between the characters, like, I don't trust this character, but more often than not, the game will just tell you that they don't trust each other instead of actually conveying that in the game, and, yeah, I didn't care about anybody in this game at all. I hope it's not the type of game that, like, gets way more interesting if you play it for, like, 8 hours, because that would be a real bummer when it comes to pacing. I think we both only played like 2 to 3 hours of the game, right?
Yeah, yeah. But were there any character moments for you that weren't based on, like, trust or anything? 'Cause
No,
I can't think of anything.
no. I mean, there was a moment at the end where King Arthur was like, "I'm gonna kill my son," and you can be like, "No, I'll do it." Is that about trust? I mean, it's a slightly
I
different
consider that
dynamic.
it's basically like the video game morality, like, do you kill them or do you not kill them? What's gonna happen?
Yeah, that's nothing. Yeah. So Pendragon, I think this is their least well-performed game. Well, maybe besides Frankenstein. Well, no, Frankenstein did well. Yeah, people don't talk about this game. I think it's fine. I don't think they didn't really elaborate on this game in any sort of way. So, wanna move on?
Yeah, I don't think that it's seen as, like, bad or anything, but it definitely, like, doesn't have praise like a lot of the other things do.
I would say if you were going to play an Inkle game and there were these many Inkle games to choose from, you should not play this one. Maybe maybe put this one lower on your priority list.
Especially considering how good the other ones are, I'd say.
Yep. Anyways, 2020, we're moving on, right?
Yeah.
2020, they're still experimenting, I'm guessing, after Heaven's Vault, and I think they hit gold again because 2021, out comes Overboard. This is a great game.
Yeah, I think this is when they started gaining popularity again. This is Jon Ingold going back to the mystery game genre. Kind of. It's kind of a detective game because this is a game where you play as a woman who has killed her husband. And the object of the game is to hide all the evidence and talk to witnesses and everything to make sure that the detective does not catch you and that you get away with your crime. And This sort of came like as part of the mystery game procedural kind of boom that was coming out during that time. Like a lot of people were hearing about this Overboard game, and I heard a lot of word of mouth being like, "Oh, this is really cool." Sort of twist on the genre. I really like other people to play this, and I went and played it during its release. It's like, oh, I really like this. This is a lot of fun. It doesn't go nearly as far as I would have liked, but I really enjoy the systems of this.
Yeah, I think this is the payoff of 2 episodes. This is why we do two-part episodes where we break down different parts of the author's career, because this is where you really see Jon Ingold's text parser influences come back into it. I mean, his text parser influence has always been clear throughout all the Inkle games, but this is the payoff to two-part episode because this is basically, I think, make it good. If you listen to the Inklecast, which is the podcast they were making while they were working on 80 Days and Sorcery 1 and 2, you keep hearing Ingold mention, I really want to make an Inkle game like Make It Good. Like he says it out loud multiple times, and he's like, "But I just don't know how to do it." And it's like foreshadowing for this game. It's
I
crazy.
want to make it good. Good. How do I do that?
All right, well, don't say that. Jesus, Make It Good is good. I recommend it. Ignore this. This guy's
I
a
get it.
demon. This guy's a demon. I told you at the start of the episode. He's not. He's not to be trusted. um, yeah,
Well, at the very least, he wanted to make it better, right?
sure. Yeah, you can see this game should have been called Make It Better. Yeah. Overboard, fantastic. Yeah, this completely ditches the map structure of the Inkle games and focuses mainly on the amount of variables the engine can contain. Because it's basically about it's like Offer describes, it's a reverse murder mystery, but you have to keep track of so many different variables. It's a time loop game. Technically, the time loop isn't diegetic. I thought this was very interesting. This and Expelled are both time loop games where the time loop is never explained like in universe. Like it's never explained why this is happening. It's just time loop because it is.
I'd say
I've
it's
never seen
explained in
any
the
other game.
sequel, but I'll talk about it later.
I don't remember. Well, okay, yeah, it is explained in the sequel. Yeah, you're right. That's such a stupid way to explain it. I completely forgot. Here's another thing I want to bring up is roguelike elements keep popping up in John Ingold's stuff, which is very interesting because he doesn't make roguelikes, but he adds procedural generation in some parts of his story. In this game, you have to basically this game is essentially in a way about learning new things each time you fail, which is what a roguelike is. You can kind of say this game is a Metroidvania as much as that's a weird term nowadays, where it's like the more information you know, the better you can progress throughout the game. Spoiler alerts, it's actually very easy to convince everybody on the boat that you didn't do the murder, but often what will happen is that the person you kill, your husband, will get ruled a suicide, which immediately runs into another problem because as you find out, you won't get the insurance money, which is what you were after the entire time because it's ruled a suicide. So you have to find a way to make it look like somebody else killed them. And after you solve that problem, you run into another problem. And it's like problems keep on growing and growing and growing. You just have to find the perfect timeline where all this stuff happens. So yeah, it's building on the roguelike structure, which will pay off later. I assure you.
I wouldn't really call it a time loop or a roguelike structure. I would just call it like a game that's really encouraging you to replay it for a better ending. Because like I think of things like I don't know, Dead Rising or something, and there's not a world where I would call that a roguelike or a time loop thing, but it is definitely a game that wants you to keep on trying and finding new things and exploring.
Well, I don't know. I just I mean, this is a small thing to quibble about. I just disagree with you in the sense that while Sorcery and like 80 Days have different routes you can take and different endings based on those routes, there's only one true ending to Overboard, and you would have to keep redoing it to reach that true ending. Like until you get to that true ending, you haven't beaten the game in a sense.
I am anti true ending. I think that you can just have any kind of ending that you want, and some people
Okay.
like true endings and some people don't.
I mean, that's true. You can quit the game whenever you want, but that's true of like literally any video game ever. You can say that you beat Dark Souls when
Yeah.
you just walked around the first room and quit.
Yeah, and I'm pro that too. I like Dark Souls so much more when I quit for like 3 years. That ending was so much better for me. When I actually beat the game, I was a little bit disappointed. So, yeah, I'm pro having off ramps whenever.
To be fair to your point and to the game, it is encouraging the players to have fun more than it is encouraging them to solve the central mystery of how do you get away with this. There's a checklist that keeps repeating every time you do another time loop of showing things that you haven't explored. And even after you finish the game, that checklist is still there if you haven't finished every single mystery. So it's like still encouraging you to figure out everything. There's also an amazing thing that I didn't do, but I saw online where you can get the perfect run where you kill everybody on board in one run. It has nothing to do with getting away with the murder. You could just murder literally everybody on board in one clean swoop if you figure out how to do it correctly. And if you do it, the game rewards you with a very special ending, which is you should take a look at it yourself if you want to find out. It's very strange.
It's a joke ending, basically, if you do that
Yeah,
because it's not really what you want to be doing.
but it's insane that you can do that. It's insane that they thought about it and that you can do that.
Yeah. There's just, like, a lot of depth through all these different systems. I know for a fact that there are, like, mysteries surrounding 2 of the characters that, like, were hinted at to me, but I didn't pursue, so I got the true ending even though I wasn't, like, figuring out everything within the game, and I like that. I like that, you don't have to find everything, that I'm not a completionist. I like that.
Yeah, I also beat the game without figuring out all the mysteries about all the characters, and that's good. I like that, yeah. I mean, that's what kind of that I think Inkle, if there's an overall project to it that's kind of unintentional, it's kind of anti-completionist as a whole, just like constantly encouraging people to be like, you don't have to find everything. It's fine. There is apparently something Ingold added in Sorcery 2 or 3, which was like he deliberately made it harder to try and find different permutations of everything because he didn't want players to do that. He made it, like, intentionally tedious in that you have to go to this place and change this mode to that mode and go to another place and change this mode to that mode to see different timelines, which probably hostile to the player, but I get his point about not wanting to do completionism for everything.
Right. But Overboard, like, was a really great return to form for them, I guess, in the eyes of the public. People were really attached to Overboard, and they liked how sort of presentable it was, how simple it was. They liked that it was a female character who was, like, fun and, like, has her own sort of thing going on. She's very entertaining to play as and interact with other characters with. It is also, like, something that encourages you to be evil, just sitting you right at the very beginning, like, "Okay, you did a bad thing. You gotta keep doing bad things or else you're not gonna be able to progress." So it's really pushing a lot of people into doing something they usually wouldn't, which is almost always like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a good person and do all the quests and help all the people." But no, in this one, you're supposed to lie to people, forge evidence, kill people, whatever. Who cares? And it's very freeing for a lot of people, I think. And I'm really glad that they went out there and encouraged people to try something new.
I think yeah, I think it's a really good idea that the game starts out like that because like, it makes me think of Sorcery in that game, Ingold described I'm sorry for talking so much about Sorcery, but Ingold talked about how that he wanted that game to be kind of comedic, like, overall, in that the rewind mechanic was kind of your saving grace, in that it was encouraging you to fuck around and find out as a main character, constantly presenting you dangerous situations that you know you shouldn't go into, but you go into anyways because you kind of want to see what happens. Other games like Disco Elysium kind of do that too, where they find joy in how catastrophic your failure can be, basically. And Overboard is a different version of embracing that demon of you, where it's just like, yeah, you're not going to walk into this and like actively put yourself in danger, but this time you can just straight up be evil. Like all these
Yeah.
characters are cartoon characters on purpose because you can just be a monster. And I think that really complements the cutesy art style because it just makes it all the more weird when you're just like, you're talking to an 80-year-old woman who's like, I think she's like lost her kids or something, and you have a deep conversation, and then you push her overboard into the water where she will almost certainly drown to death. Great game. I love
Yeah.
it.
Something I really like about this game is that in many ways it is about like a lot of sexist attitudes that characters go through. Like the husband is kind of a piece of shit and is like hurt the main character and another girl in various ways. And there's just this common theme about a lot of women who are being like facing a lot of injustices through this whole social system. But the main character just fucking kill them and ruin their lives. And it's not
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, these are some bad things that are happening and you could be a part of it. You could be one of those pieces of shit. I think it's
because
really
she
funny
doesn't
that you could
care.
do
Yeah.
that. It's like it's engaging with these themes, but also it's just like, yeah, be evil, do it anyway. Woo! I think that's so funny.
It's a horrible world that needs fixing. It's just that you just happen to be a sociopath in the world, so you can't really do. You might as well just give into it. You know, I think about what he said with make it good, which is again the he cites the same influences from Make It Good for this game. Those two detective text adventure games, Deadline and I think Suspect. Yeah, but he talks about in that game, he wanted to make a text adventure where you could do anything without justifying yourself. So when you first meet somebody in that game, a woman opens the door and you could just kick her down immediately and start punching her. And the game doesn't justify it to you at all. And you could just do that and get away with it. Overboard is kind of in the same vein where it's just like, yeah, just act on the most evil instinct you can think of. Go for it. Yeah. And I think that's great. I promised myself that I will allow myself to not talk about games on this podcast if I didn't know anything about them This is the first time I think I'm doing that. No, I probably did that sometimes before, but I just wanted to make it official for myself. I don't know anything about a Highland song. I didn't play it. Apparently, it is a 2D platformer with Inkle's engine, which is also apparently rhythm based. I don't know what's going on there. I didn't have time to play it. Sorry, but I wanted to talk about this very weird thing that happened in between Overboard and their next game, Expelled, which was a sequel to Overboard called the Forever Labyrinth. Do you know what this is? Offer.
No, I do not. Please explain.
This is very bizarre. I don't know how this happened. Well, I mean, they're a pretty popular company, but Google, the company Google in their branch, their arts and culture branch asked Inkle to make a game in order to promote their arts and culture sect, basically. And their arts and culture sect has a lot of paintings just in store. You can go to Google Art and Culture. You could just see they have a lot of paintings displayed, and you could just look at them for free. So they wanted to make a game to promote that. And Jonathan Ingold took this idea of trying to promote art to audiences through Google and said, let me make maybe the most complicated game I've ever made in my entire career. The Forever Labyrinth is, I don't even know how, maybe I'm overhyping this too much, but I thought it was very strange when I realized what this game was. It is an art appreciation roguelike game about where you get better by appreciating art more. You
What?
basically, yes, I'm not
Explain.
kidding.
I don't understand.
I'm not kidding. So it's a browser-based game, so you can play it for free. The story is very, very light. You're a person who is a protege of a professor, an art professor, and she has disappeared. And you find one of her paintings and you say a word that she left behind, I think, and you teleport in the painting. And you teleport out of that painting into a mysterious liminal space, very strange kind of place with a bunch of different paintings that are all procedurally generated. And your goal is to find specific rooms of paintings by reciting keywords. Each of these rooms have like 3 or so paintings, and they're divided by keyword. So this whole one room will have all chairs, or another room will have all smog, all paintings with smog in them, or paintings with shadows that are prominent in them. And basically, you go up to each of these paintings and you recite keywords to try and teleport to rooms with other keywords to try to find the specific room you're traveling to. So if you were trying to find a room that had paintings of houses in them, like you would find a piece of paper that said, "Meet me at the house room." And if you didn't see any paintings with houses in them, you try maybe to find a painting with streets in them and teleport to the streets room. And hopefully from the streets room, you would be able to teleport to the houses room. And this is like the entire game, you're put on a very specific time limit where if you don't find well, first up, you can straight up get trapped in rooms without exits because what will happen is as the labyrinth is moving, it will straight up start crumbling. So exits will close. So you can't leave the same rooms that you walked into sometimes. So sometimes you will just soft lock yourself and you have to restart the browser and start from a run all the way over. Other times, if you're taking too long, somebody will show up and murder you because you're taking too long. So you will just die. And
What?
the browser retains some of your information, but doesn't retain others. You're collecting, there are also 100 pieces, there are 100 pages of the journal of the professor you're looking for that you can collect that keeps track over time as you keep doing runs over and over again. So it's a lot. There are also there are 12 different NPCs, each with their own subplots where you have to find specific items in different parts of the labyrinth and return them to that NPC to finish them, although that's completely optional. There's just so much about this game that is so bizarre. It's about teleporting. You basically have to turn your brain into a database of paintings with different objects in them and be like, okay, I need to find the sunflower painting, and I've already seen the sunflower painting. So I have to go back through there, through this room, which was through this keyword, through that door. And if a door closes, then you have to find another way to that room with the keyword. I know I sound insane right now. It's a very hard to describe
Yeah.
video game.
This game sounds wild. I can't believe I didn't play this. I saw there was, like, some browser game on Google or whatever. I was like, "Okay, whatever," and didn't, like, go into it. But, like, man, I wanna play this now. I wanna know what is going on. But would you say that this is, like, a game that teaches you to appreciate art? From what I'm hearing, it's more like just kind of finding keywords and seeing things that are similar in the same
Really, it's not.
paintings.
Yeah, I think they failed in that respect. In that
Okay.
it basically trains you to turn paintings into information, which is kind of the complete opposite of
Right.
what you want art to be. You basically become an LLM. You become an AI, right? And it's like I mean, if anything, it advertises how many paintings Google Arts and Culture has, which I'm sure is good. I'm sure that helped them in terms of traffic. But yeah, in terms of art appreciation, it didn't help. Another thing I forgot to mention, even after giving you that entire description of the game, I don't think this game is very good. Even after all of that, I don't think this game is very good. The runs are way too repetitive in that the rooms are procedurally generated. So when you restart, all the rooms move and all the paintings are replaced in each of those rooms. And the organization of those rooms are changed. The only thing you have left over are the pages of the journal, which is I mean, it's basically an optional collectible. So you basically have to find your way to the end of the labyrinth in a certain amount of time, otherwise you're screwed. Yeah, it's too repetitive. I played this game for, like, a whole afternoon. Some people played it for, like, 30 minutes and then quit, but I it was, like, 4 straight hours of looking at paintings and being like, "This one has a sunflower in it. This one has a door in it." And I was just, like, so tired of it by the end that when I finished it, I was, like, completely exhausted. I did not like this game. Yeah.
That sounds
This
like
is
like a captcha game.
yeah, in a way, it kind of is. Just name all the pictures that have name all the pictures that have a car in it. It's kind of like that. But this is so I mean, even then, I'm still fascinated by this game. Even the concept for this game is more interesting than some actual games that you can play. I wanna put this next to Pendragon in that it's, like, an interesting concept done poorly, but this is much better than Pendragon, I would say. This was one of those games where I just got really excited for it in the first 30 minutes of the game, and then it just kind of dropped off after that. But maybe you should play it for 30 minutes or so without promising yourself that you're gonna beat the game because it's very underwhelming, let's just say that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to do that just to see what it is.
It's so bizarre. This is the payoff to the roguelike thing, by the way. I feel like he's been thinking of roguelike elements throughout his games, and his response here, when Google asked him to make a game about art appreciation was, "I'm gonna cash in all my chips here. Now is the time to do a roguelike. Let's go." Um, um, yeah, I just wanted to say this is only a game an auteur can make, I think. This is only a game that somebody deeply invested in the art can make.
I think it's very interesting that Google came to Ingold for this. I don't really see what would make them want to do that, but because it seems like it's very different and not really what I would think of for a lot of Ingold's work. But I guess they did, and I'm glad they did. I guess.
I think if there's one thing Inkle does that appeals to a broad audience, it's that he makes interactive stories like accessible for even people who don't play video games. You know, like people can pick up 80 Days
True.
or Overboard and understand that. So I think maybe the story was Google approached Inkle being like, "Hey, can you make a game for our art appreciation thing?" And only after that did Inkle pitch the roguelike thing. That's what I'm choosing to believe because it's funnier. Because I can imagine Google receiving the game for the first time and being like, "What is this? How can anybody play this game and understand what's going on?" Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Can we talk about Expelled now? I want to talk about
Yes.
Expelled. This
After
is my
that, we
favorite
have
game.
their 2 most recent games, I think 2025 and 2026, Expelled.
Expelled is a sequel to Overboard, and it's doing a lot of the same things. It's a lot of the same structure. Basically, the plot in this is that the plot in this game is that the main character is in a girls' boarding school, and she has been accused of a crime she didn't commit. Basically, she's been accused of pushing a girl out of the window of the cathedral and sort of destroying both the property and this girl, really heavily injuring her. But you see that she's been falsely accused and she pushed herself out the window. And your job is to defend yourself. Say, I'm innocent, I'm a good person, and you have to find evidence and prove that to everyone that matters that you are not worthy of being expelled for doing this thing that you didn't commit. This whole game is sort of presented as the main character talking to her father and explaining what happened. And every time that you play the game, her story changes because you're playing it differently. And she's like, well, that's not entirely how it happened. And the first few times I went through this sort of cycle, I was like, why do we have this strange narrative device happening? Like, what is the point of this? But then I realized, like, this is not a game about her changing her story by elaborating. No, this is a game about changing her story because she's lying, because she's actually kind of a piece of shit. And the first time you play this game, you're like, oh, I'm doing all the nice things. I'm being nice to all these different students, and I'm really gonna genuinely find this evidence to prove that I'm innocent. But then, like at the end of your first run through, you meet the principal, and she's like, "You're not gonna get anywhere if you're gonna be like that. You're gonna have to be a piece of shit, say some really mean stuff." And there's this like morality bar at the very top. And if you've been playing like a normal person, you'd have like a completely angelic meter at your morality thing. Like you didn't do anything wrong. But then at the end of this first run, you were forced into just completely screwing that up, getting tons and tons of evil points by basically cursing out your principal for getting you in trouble and expelling you, even though you didn't do it. So the game's sort of forcing you to be like, this is not a game about you doing the right thing. This is a game about you being worse and being more of an asshole every time you play it. And it really sells you on that. I loved how this game would elaborate and change based off of how much of a piece of shit you are. Because this is like a thing that Ingold had been wanting to engage with for a very long time. You see this in a lot of his text parser games, but here I think it really all comes together.
I love this thing so much because it's I think the first time I think it's the first time an Inkle game has made a big part of what, like, its appeal is not part of the selling hook of this game. The selling like, if you look at the marketing for this game, it doesn't tell you about the morality meter at all. Like, it's not mentioned in any of the game's marketing at all. In fact, the original tagline, or, like, the selling point for the game is, "It's like Overboard, but not only do you have to get yourself off the hook, but maybe you can convince somebody else that, or maybe you can convince the school that somebody else did it, you know? Or maybe you can find the actual person who did it." So it's like a double murder mystery where you're trying to get yourself off the hook, but also somebody else onto the hook. So it's kind of being coy with that. But when the morality meter actually kicks in, it's crazy. I love the idea of doing a time loop where the goal is to just ramp up speed throughout the time loop as you go over and over and over again. That's such a ridiculous idea. And when it comes to make it good, as it influences Overboard and Expelled, I have to say, if I think he finally did it after like over a decade, he finally made the twist to make it good actually work. It didn't work and make it good. I don't think, I mean, there wasn't a twist like that in Overboard because they just tell you straight out. But here, it actually does work as a twist. That, I mean, we're just getting to major spoilers now, right?
I mean, I think that what makes the sort of flip or twist in this game work is that it's the player that gets to do it. The player gets to choose, "Oh,
Right.
I'm going to be more evil." And like, "Oh, this game is not what I thought it was. This game is about becoming more evil. And I'm the one who's doing this. And I'm the one who is going to be figuring out some other way to make this worse."
It's so smart too with the way it does this, because Overboard, from the beginning, it tells you, hey, you're going to be amoral, you're going to be evil, do whatever you want. With this game, it opens by telling you, hey, you're nice, so try to play nice. You didn't get accused of this murder, so try to be nice to other people. And as it ramps up the evil stuff and you do more and more evil things, you start to get into the mindset of the original game. And it's explaining how you become the character from the original game. So by the end of this game, you have the same mindset as the character in the first game. So it's literally a prequel, not just in the sense that your character becomes the character from Overboard, but also you, the player, your mindset becomes the mindset of the player from Overboard. That's mind blowing to me.
And I love that
That's
this is also
crazy.
like an aspect of the narrative and theme because it's in like a Catholic boarding school and it is about
Yeah.
people feeling guilt and people hiding things from each other and like being both a bad person but also wanting forgiveness, except for the main character who is knows that they're a bastard and is willing to like do bad things. And like you sort of becoming an understanding of the game's rhetoric as it goes on because being a good person is just a losing play in this game. But,
Right.
like, the winning plays are also not always great either, so what do you do? Who knows?
You can literally see the reasoning that led to the character. Yeah, because like in the first Overboard, they again we mentioned that game has social commentary about how the world mistreats women and how all the stuff is going on in the background of how unfair these things are while you're being a sociopath and pushing people overboard. Here, this time you start out as a nice person, but the same shittiness occurs in the background. This game deals a lot with the corruption of Catholic schools and overbearing headmasters who punish their teacher or who punish their pupils sadistically. And you can see how that turns the main character into like a Breaking Bad style metamorphosis into the character she becomes. Yeah, literal cause and effect. I don't know. Amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like the cast is just really good as well. I feel like almost everyone I interacted with had some kind of mini story going on, maybe their own little arc as well, or at least their own special relation to the main character's arc. And yeah, I was just really happy to explore every aspect of this game and finally figuring out like the quote unquote true ending was such a joy at the end, like figuring out all these different things. I don't know. It was so cool. It felt like I was really learning everything.
Yeah. We should mention this is a much meatier game than Overboard. Overboard took, like, 2.5 hours to beat. This is, like, 5 hours or so, yeah.
Yeah,
This
and they
is
only made Overboard in, like, 4 months, whereas this is a much larger game. It's really expanding on the concept. They know what they're doing now, and they just wanna make a bigger version of it. I think the runs are, like, twice as long. There are way
yeah.
more endings. It's really incredible how much they grew.
And it really does improve on it, I think, in every way. I'm kinda surprised at the negative reviews of this saying that, "Oh, it's not as good as the first Overboard," because I think it improved on it in
What?
basically every way. Yeah, people don't like this
Who the
game.
fuck is saying that?
I know, I know. People on backlogs are like, "Oh, it wasn't as good." They don't know what they're talking about. My favorite part about the characters being better, and I think the characters in this game are much better or, like, more they feel more three-dimensional than in the original Overboard. Although that's fine for the original Overboard because they were kind of like 2D people that you can push you can push to their deaths, basically. That's fine. Meanwhile, this game, well, first off, they're all kids, so you don't really murder them. Although, it would have been crazy if they did allow you to murder them, like, if they explicitly said, "Oh, they're all dead." You murder them. But I think this game is a lot better with its sympathy because it's like there are a bunch of subplots where it's like you can tell these people are hurting inside, and you use that information throughout the loops to become even more evil instead of fixing their problems. It's so awesome. It's so I, like I keep thinking about this one moment. I mean, we're really getting into spoilers now, but you find out this girl or your roommate has this crush on you, and she doesn't want to speak out about it because you know it's
Yes!
like the early 20th century. You know that's very taboo in a Catholic school, and you use that information to get her to defend you, so you're taken off the hook for murder. It's like you don't satisfy any of her desires at all. You just like use it to your own gain, and it's never paid off in any meaningful way for her.
That
It's
was my favorite. I really bought into the idea that this is going to be a legitimate romance. It's like, okay, everything else goes wrong. This is like supposed to be her one pure thing, the thing that she trusts and like she has a heart. This is supposed to be what is happening. But no, you can fuck her over too. It's so good. Oh my god.
And by the end of the game, you're just doing run after run after run where you're like, okay, I gotta get the chloroform here, and I'm gonna chloroform my roommate who loves me, just like without a second thought, and chloroform everybody around the school. Oh my god. There's so many different fun things about this game. Yeah. Yeah, this is easily my favorite Inkle game.
Mine too. I'm surprised by how much I liked it. I was kind of like iffy on Overboard, to be honest. It's like I
Mm,
like this, but I feel like there's just something that isn't there. But with Overboard, I'm like, oh my god, they found it. They found what isn't there. They filled that hole in my heart.
yeah.
Yeah. Before we go into recommendation, I'm like, I would recommend this to like everybody. This is easily my favorite, and I want everyone else to play it.
Technically, there's one more game I'm gonna do,
Yeah,
but you
I
didn't play it.
know. I'm just
All
saying
right.
that
All right.
before we do recommendations, that this is the one I'm gonna recommend.
Okay. Yeah, I would also recommend. Yeah, you know what? I don't think you need to know that much about Overboard to play this game. Yeah, just go into it. It's great. Just a great detective game. Yeah. And their last game, Ingold's last game, his most recent game, TR-49, which was I think released this year. Hold on, let me check. Actually,
Yeah,
I don't want
just
to
a few
get it
months
wrong.
ago.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is interesting because it's yet another break in the formula. I guess they don't really have a formula anymore, huh? If there's anything that's a formula, it's Overboard, but they've only made 2 games of it, and the last one came out last year. So there's not really. I think they're just doing whatever at this point. But yeah, TR-49. I would argue you didn't play this game, right?
No, I did not.
Okay, this is a puzzle game. I would argue if there's anything, it's like the most, it would be Her Story. It's a lot like that. This is interesting in that it feels a lot to me like Ingold's most text parser ish Inkle game that he's done. It's basically the setup is a little complicated, but generally the idea is you are a person who is interacting with this extremely antique but very complicated archival machine, like this library archival machine that has its own kind of Dewey Decimal System, and then you have to figure out the exact right coordinates of this Dewey Decimal System to find new entries of this ongoing story that happened years ago that you're figuring out now. Which means that most of the input you do is through this Dewey Decimal System. You can talk to there's a person talking to you over an intercom that you can respond to, but most of the actual gameplay you do is entering in these little digits in these codes, like how you would enter in keywords for Her Story to look through the video database or of whatever. Weirdly enough, I didn't even know about this until I researched it. Did you? Very weird part of Ingold's career where all of a sudden, because remember, he was a math major when he initially went to college and he became a math professor.
Yeah, go
He,
math. Woo!
yeah, shout out to math. You guys rock.
This is a pro
Not
math podcast.
sorry, guys. I know we're like an hour or like an hour and a half. And if you don't like math, turn off the podcast. We don't want you here. Get out of here. Yeah. So he was hired in 2014, which means that he was working on 80 Days while he was doing this. He was randomly hired as a math consultant on the Hollywood movie The Imitation Game, which is about Alan Turing.
What?
You know that Alan Turing biopic movie, The Imitation Game? He was hired
Yes,
as a
he was a
consultant on it.
consultant?
And he went on set while they were filming. And this was just something he was doing while he was making 80 Days. Basically, the game was inspired because he was looking around and he didn't know what was going on in the shoot. And he saw a piece of machinery they made for the set labeled TR-49, and he didn't know what it meant. And that basically led to this a bunch of years later. I don't know, just very bizarre that he did that. I guess good for him. Yeah, this game is very interested in. This is where I think Ingold's sciencey stuff comes out. I mean, it's definitely a detective game where you're finding out stuff, but a lot of what you're finding out has to do with the world of quantum mechanics and science. And as you realize, this world that you're in is not the world that we are in real life. This is kind of a dystopian future, and something is happening involving these books that led to something very bad. Let's just say it has. I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but it does get involved in sci-fi and a lot of stuff mentioned in like Jorge Luis Borges stories. A lot about how fiction can interact with reality.
So what happened was that there was a giant map that overlaid the entire world, and
Yeah,
then the
that's it.
Earth
You got
decayed.
it.
That's what happened?
You got it. You figured it out. You did it.
What a twist, jeez.
I think this game's good because it's a very different. Like I said, it's very much like his text parser games in that there is explicitly a puzzle that you have to figure out. There are basically, I mean, there are technically multiple endings, but there's only one really good ending, and your goal is to essentially figure out the puzzle by finding all the different entries and collating the story together. Yeah, it is a game primarily about filling out information. There's also like an Oberdin style drop down sheet where you fill in the blanks of who did what and what they were responsible for.
So is this also like a procedural mystery kinda thing?
No, that's the thing. It's not procedural at all. It's actually very linear and written. Yeah. This is actually, I guess this you could say this is Inkle's only linear game they've made in
Huh.
that it has a definitive ending. Yeah. It took them this long to finally make a linear game. But yeah, I mean, you can discover clues in different ways in that they provide different context clues and you can jump around and you can solve the mystery without having discovered every single entry in the database. Although it is kind of encouraged that you do that.
Okay,
But
so do you consider her story to be linear as well?
I mean, I would say so
Okay.
because there's only one ending. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it depends on whether or not you consider her story linear or not, because there is a definitive ending point to that, but also you can find clues in whatever order you want, which is the same as it works for this game. But still, yeah, I would say this is a very linear game. It's very much like a text parser game in that there are like, well, first off, there's a maze. I don't know. You may be wondering how a game where you can only do input by typing in like specific codes can have a maze in it, but turns out that's possible. He figured it out. Very text parser-esque. Yeah, but there's also I don't know, it just has the feeling of a puzzly text parser-ish game where it's very strict on you if you do the thing wrong. It allows you to undo like incredibly specific events that lead to different endings. So if you get a bad ending, then you can undo a specific motion that you did because spoiler alert, something you do at the end of the game is very important for figuring out the puzzle that is basically the entire game. Yeah, I don't know. I would say this is a lot like a text parsers in that it's one big puzzle to figure out, I guess. TR-49, I think, forgot to mention this. This is probably the main selling point of the game. It's a game that you can pick up and solve in about like 3 to 5 hours in one sitting. So that's the type of game you're going with. So if you feel like you have an afternoon to spend on this type of thing, pick it up. I don't think this game really encourages multiple playthroughs or going down in separate sittings, although you can do that. But yeah, I would recommend it as a puzzle game. All right, let's move on to recommendations.
All right. Well, I'm for sure recommending Expelled. If you play any of these games, I want it to be Expelled. I'm also going to recommend 80 Days. I think that one's like a classic in the mobile space and like is really historically important. But it also like is a great game from my perspective. I also think that Overboard and Sorcery are really good, but I want to keep my recommendations short, so I'm keeping it to those two.
Well, I'm making my recommendations long because screw you. Also, I just want to mention this is the longest gameography we've ever covered on the podcast so far. Like, it's not even close. There's just so much stuff in here. But yeah, I would
I mean,
recommend.
if we did every Sylvie game, that would have been a really long one.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do every so. The thing about Ingold is that there's too many important games that he made, which is, I mean,
True.
to have so many hit titles is a lot. Yeah, I would recommend Overboard and Expelled. I would say, I mean, you can technically play it Expelled on its own. I would recommend playing Overboard first, not just because of the story, but also because it just like Expel just blows Overboard out of the water with how much more mechanics it adds that you might want to start with something simpler before going on to the more complicated version. I don't know. If there's one thing I would recommend, it's that Overboard and Expelled. I would also recommend the Sorcery series. I didn't play all the games, but Ingold has said in multiple interviews that it's the thing he's the most proud of, the entire four-step series. You can technically jump into any game in any order you want, but also it's encouraged that you play the first game and then you can transfer your save over to the second game, which transfers to the third and the fourth game. Also, apparently, if you just jump into the fourth game, which doesn't have rewinds, it becomes very difficult because you don't have any items that carry over from the previous game. So you're just like
What?
one hit kill. So you're just like constantly restarting. Yeah, so
That's
don't do
funny.
that.
Imagine if like Mass Effect did that on the third game. Like, oh, you're just fine the third game. No, you screwed over. Fuck you.
Yeah. If you're interested in what we said about Heaven's Vault, go play it. I personally didn't like it. The Forever Labyrinth, if you're very interested in what I said about it, just play it for a little bit. I wouldn't recommend finishing it, but it's so bizarre that it just has to be seen. And actually, maybe above Sorcery, I would recommend TR-49 also because it's just a good puzzle game. Yeah. And that's it. No 80 days because fuck you.
So you've recommended everything except his most popular game and Pendragon.
Pretty much.
Okay.
What can I say?
Well,
You can tell that I like this person. He spent like 3 months on this guy alone.
I don't know. I think that my recommendation philosophy is very different. If you came to me, if I was like, "Hey, what's a Jon Ingold game that I should do? What's your recommendation?" And you're like, "Here you go." You slam down 8 titles on me. I'm gonna be a little freaked out. I don't know where to start.
I'm like a I'm treating this like Siskel and Ebert, where it's just however many thumbs down I give up that week and
Okay,
however many
okay.
thumbs down I give down that week.
So instead, we have Siskel and Ebert. We have one person doing thumbs up and thumbs down, and the other person doing a 10-point rating scale. I like
Yep,
that.
perfect. Perfect. It's just like actual gaming reviews. You know, we're all on different scales basically. There's no consistent metric for anything.
All right. This was your recommendation doing Jon Ingold. If you don't have any more thoughts, I'm gonna go on to mine.
No more. I finally got everything out, and we can never talk about them again.
Okay. So this is very exciting. We're gonna do another big name. This is gonna be someone that you know. So I'm gonna want to do a guessing game. I'm
Uh,
gonna give
uh,
you three
Shigeru.
clues.
Hmm.
No, yeah, Shigeru Miyamoto. Again, we're doing it again. I'm gonna give you three clues, and I want you to guess after each successive clue. Okay.
Okay.
Here's a freebie. This is gonna be my clue. He's big enough where I know that you're gonna know who this is. I think that some people for like this difficulty level, if you only like play a lot of the big games, you might not know. But if you're listening to a video game podcast, then you definitely know who this is. So that's where this difficulty level is.
Okay. So like niche-ish, huh?
Yeah. First clue. This person was working in the 2000s and made a lot of games that were very gamey. He was known for doing kind of arcade inspired, gameplay oriented things where a lot of people were doing more cinematic stuff. He's also male, which I guess is also a freebie during this period.
Just gonna be honest. I feel like this is leading to a joke, but I'm gonna try and guess earnestly. um,
Okay.
I'm
No, I
I
I want real good guesses. I wanted to see what you think.
Okay. My first guess is John Cooney. That's the guy who made This Is the Only Level, Elephant Rave, a lot of
No.
arcadey flash games. No.
I wouldn't know that name off the top of my head, personally, but I am familiar with his work, and I want this to be like a fun thing. I want you to be able to guess for it. I want the listener to guess as well.
All right.
Okay, so second guess. This person's work wants to be very cool. For this second clue, he wants to be stylish and cool.
Huh. I mean, he was making games before the 2000s, within the 80s and 90s, but I want to guess Jeff Minter.
Ooh, no.
All right.
I'm
His games are
I'm gonna
cool
give
though.
you one more freebie clue. This person is Japanese. And my final clue, I think this one might be more specific. We'll have to see. He's very annoying on Twitter. He's known for being a real aggravating guy and for blocking lots of people, but not for being like problematic or bigoted or anything.
Okay. We're doing Hideki Kamiya.
Yeah! We're doing Hideki Kamiya. I love it. That was the one that made you know.
You didn't
Yeah,
even
but
have to
we're
give me the first two clues. You could have just given me that one and I would have gotten it.
I love that. Okay. But specifically, I want to talk about his early career at Capcom. And I want to challenge you, Galvin. You've been a real completionist lately. I dislike that. A lot of these games are known for being like kind of difficult or, I don't know, like people fall off of these games a lot. And I want you specifically to, if you ever get the slightest urge to fall off and to stop playing, you got to take it. You got to stop playing whatever you want to stop playing.
Okay.
Okay.
So the
That's my
rage baiting
challenge to you.
option, very appropriate for the guy who rage baits people online. The
Yes.
rage bait challenge. Okay.
So I want to do his early Capcom era before he left the company. So this is Resident Evil 2. It's just a second game, his directorial debut, and Devil May Cry, a really big, important action adventure game that kind of defined the character action genre, and Beautiful Joe, which is probably one of the largest beat 'em up series. There aren't really a lot of beat 'em ups, to be honest, in the 2D space after the arcade era, which I think is very interesting. I also really love Beautiful Joe a lot, so I really was really excited to talk about that. And Okami, a game that is known for being very, very long, Zelda-like with very beautiful art where you play as a wolf. And I'm not gonna beat that one. Please don't try to beat that one. The first cutscene is 30 minutes long.
Oh god.
So
Okay, I didn't think it was that bad. Okay.
yeah, so don't I want you to like get the sense for what the game is. You'll see what I mean. We'll get to it in the next episode, but I think you'll see what my problems are with that game very quickly and why I didn't want to continue with it. But yeah, I'm very excited to do Kamiya. I think he's an interesting figure. I wanted to do a more popular person recently because I like to have that diversity and definitely not an interactive fiction person. So we have more gameplay oriented people as well. I'm still doing my strategy
Excellent.
of choosing someone who is as different as possible as the last three people we chose. So
That's a good
I'm
idea.
excited.
Very good idea. Yeah, I would say okay. I'm interested in a lot of these games. It's very unfortunate that the first game I'm going to be playing from Resident Evil is Resident Evil 2 and not the first one. But that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. I
Same
can't
for
wait.
me. I haven't played any of the Resident Evil games yet. I'm a fraidy
Okay.
cat, so we'll see how it goes for me.
I absolutely cannot wait for the 5 minutes I will play at Devil May Cry before immediately rage quitting because I've heard that game's very difficult. Um,
It is.
I I've heard. I mean, the biggest thing that's caught my eye was Beautiful Joe because it just has an amazing art style. I just want to see what that is. And yeah, I did not know Okami was 33 hours. So yep, that's not happening. All right, but I'm liking the small amount of games we have here instead of like it half of a person's career we're doing.
His first 3 games are also known for being very short, but, like, replayable. They was really encouraging people to do things over and over again, but
Okay.
we're just gonna be keeping it pretty short because he wanted people to have high scores and stuff. I don't think we're a very high
Oh,
score-oriented
okay.
people, but you can do that if you want to, and I think Okami is funny because it's so long in comparison to everything else he did, but yeah.
That's something I missed actually. The high score thing. I didn't realize that was what he was doing. I didn't real was Resident Evil 2 high score based? That seems strange to me.
I mean, it was, like, kinda speed run based. You're encouraged to do things quickly.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll see what that's all
Yeah.
about then. Well, that's it for our podcast. And be sure to subscribe if you want more episodes. If you want to see the next Hideki Kamiya episode, go to our Blue Sky if you want to see updates from us over there. Follow Offer Function on YouTube. He has a great video essay channel. And follow my HIO page. I make games every once in a while. And thank you for listening. Remember, game auteurs are important. Remember their names. Goodbye.